Hello, good morning, and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde, and straight to papers we go to this morning because it's just right there in our faces, and everyone has been talking about the Omicron variant. So let's begin with the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. And it leads with UK, US ban throw Nigeria's air travel into chaos. That's the lead of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. Travelers seek alternative routes as deadline takes effect today. UK suspends visitor visa processing for applicants from Nigeria. US releases new protocols restricting international travels. Canada rejects COVID-19 certificates from Nigeria, 9 other nations. All of that you will find packed on the front page, but the stories you'll find on pages 2, 3, and 6 of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. Under the picture on the front page of the paper, jam to clear backlog of illegal admissions. That's what you have on this front page, and you're wondering what that means. Find the details on pages 2 and 4 of the New Telegraph newspaper today. Incidentally, News Direct has the same story this morning. COVID-19, return to protocol enforcement looms. That's what it leads with this morning. As fear over Omicron mounts, FG laments constraints on vaccine rollout, scale up safety protocols. Resident doctors say to FG, UK ban on Nigeria travels take effect today. All of that you find on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, among several other stories. And still on the same COVID-19 Omicron, FG may fine airlines $3,500 per traveler in revised protocol. That's what you have on the front page of Daily Independent this morning. Passengers require 48 hours negative PCR test result. That's a yardstick. Non-compliant airlines may be banned from Nigeria. UK suspends processing of visitor visa applications from Nigeria. All of that packed on the front page continues on the inside pages of the Daily Independent this morning. That's what you have on the front page of Daily Independent newspaper. And under the picture you see on the front page, 2023 APC governors split over Tinubu's presidential ambition. And there is a rider, party is a gunner, technically non-existent. That's according to Senator Hanger. What does that mean? You find the details on the front page, continues on the inside pages. That's the Daily Independent this morning. Good morning, Markwe.
For 1 minute, I was like, are you going to take all the papers without me? Well, here I am, and I'm going to start with the Vanguard. Omicron is certainly causing a lot of furore here. Look at this. Omicron, UK, Canada, tighten news on Nigeria. UK suspends processing of visitor visa applications from Nigeria, asks residents traveling from Nigeria to pay £2,285 for a 10-day quarantine. Well, if you just do the maths, that will cost you an average of £228.5 per day. Pounds is not exactly, it's not exactly cheap when you convert that to naira. So that's a lot to pay for a 10-day quarantine. We can no longer accept results of COVID tests from Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, others. That's coming from the Canadian government. Federal government decides on UK's ban on Nigerian travelers this week. Health professionals differ over UK travel ban. So that's what you have on the front page of the Vanguard, taking a very strong look at the UK-Canada moves on Omicron. You also have this. Former COAS Lieutenant General Wushishi dies at 81. That's an obituary announcement. At the bottom there, Nigeria records zero revenue from oil export as subsidy hits 119 billion naira. JAMB will clear backlog of illegal admission, bars BTC centers from selling UTME e-pins. That's from Oloide. And Darwin College, over 100,000 signed petition, demand prosecution of culprits. That's a page 10 read. And just in case you're wondering what the graph is about, well, it's not good news. Cooking gas prices to surge further as supply drops 5.5%. And they're showing you the price of cooking gas, with respect to the kilogram. So a 12.5 kilogram cylinder is going for about 8,500 naira. And that's just the refill. That's just the gas inside, not with the cylinder, just in case you're wondering. Well, let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
Incidentally, you didn't read Mr. and Mrs. again. We could protest, but maybe not yet. Nigerian Tribune this morning, Omicron variant is the lead of the paper as well. UK suspends processing of visitor visa applications from Nigeria. Stories on page 27. Residents traveling from Nigeria to pay £2,285 for 10-day quarantine. Yeah, Marco, you're correct. It's too much to pay for 10 days. But then, perhaps it'll depend on the value of what you're going there for. Find the details on the inside pages. And there's so many stories begging for attention on the front page of the paper this morning. Under that picture of anti-COVID-19 restriction protest in Belgium, that's already happening. Belgian authorities have restricted movement and people are saying no more. Under that picture, Darwin College, 160,000 signed petition seeking prosecution of those involved in Sylvester Oromoni's torture and death. Stories on page 26. And school management says we're open to investigation. Find the details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Why Nigeria must be restructured according to Tambuwal, set to unveil presidential bid. Find the details of that story on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
Well, let's take a look at what is happening in Abuja with the Abuja Inquirer. And they have the Safe Schools Initiative. FCTA turns to vigilantes. Mall CCTVs, fencing to establish agro rangers to protect farms. Those are some of the, well, that's the story that the Abuja Inquirer is pursuing for you this morning. Sexual harassment, Uni Abuja probes 10 cases. Well, certainly a welcome development. You should probe it very diligently. You also have on top of the nameplate here, NUJFCT Inquirer Editor Ubeche re-elected, or Tom Hill's victory breaks 2-decade one-term jinx. So that's something around NUJ politics. And at the bottom here, FCT identifies money launderers set to confiscate real estate. That's also there. JAMB bars CBT centers from selling UTME e-pins. That is on page 10 of the paper. Just in case you're wondering what that story is about, because one will say they don't write JAMB about this time of the year, unless there was some rescheduling, or maybe this is ahead of the next JAMB, or you might want to see details on page 10 of the Abuja Inquirer. Let's leave it there for the paper.
The Guardian newspaper this morning has this one. UK halts visa for Nigerians as experts ask FG to reciprocate. And a pack of riders there, passengers stranded as British Airways cancels flights in and out of Nigeria. UK detects 80 new Omicron cases, bound to affect over 8,000 Nigerian travelers. Citizens UK coming from Nigeria to pay £2,285 for 10-day quarantine. Canada no longer accepting COVID-19 test results from Nigeria. 9 African countries. Global clinic data confirms new variant is less lethal. Holiday travels hobble under restrictions. Forex liquidity crisis. All that you find on the front page of The Guardian. That picture you see is of stranded UK-bound passengers at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport after their flight was cancelled in Lagos yesterday. So many others, stories also asking for attention, but that's The Guardian newspaper this morning.
Daily Trust has this one: cement price skyrockets as companies declare record profits. Just in case you're wondering why cement, the price of cement has gone up, well, maybe this is the reason. Cement price skyrockets as companies declare record profits. Dangote, Boa, Lafarge rake 469 billion naira in 9 months. Senate wants more cement licenses. Manufacturers blame low production. Retailers for price surge. It's a page 5 read for you, and they have some infographics. What cement companies made in 9 months is right there. And they also have current cement prices around Nigeria for you. They're citing Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and Maiduguri. And if you look at the bottom here, Omicron experts worry as Canada, UK ban Nigerian flights. You have a number of stories at the bottom there. Groom's parents, sibling, 6 guests killed in Bielsa road crash. The amount of people dying on our roads to accidents is something that we really need to take more seriously. I mean, in terms of the kind of accidents we're recording and the number of lives we're losing to it. We talk about illnesses, we talk about insecurity, but when we look at the number of lives we're losing to road crashes, there needs to be a second examination of what's happening on our roads. Just beneath the nameplate, Kano APC crisis, Tinubu Shekarau meet. It's on page 26, and this very disturbing story. 8 children found dead inside abandoned car in Lagos. It's on page 4 of the paper. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Well, the last two of the last 3 items that you looked at, Mark, were definitely call for concern where we consider the value we place on lives. But it is what it is, and as we always said, authorities do have their work cut out for them. Well, that's the much of the papers we can take this morning. We'll delve right straight into the issues for the day, and of course, guess which one after this break.
You know that many countries were not very happy when 6 countries in Southern Africa were placed on a red list. And the WHO also advised against putting each other on the red list. From what we know so far about the COVID-19, there are many ways to manage it. And besides, not much was known, or not much is still known about the Omicron variant. We know, for example, that there have been no fatalities. There have also been no reports of very severe illness. So actually the rationale for being so hasty in putting countries on a red list is not something that is very helpful. It's going to disrupt commerce, it's going to disrupt family reunions, it is going to disrupt the movement of goods and services, particularly at this time of year towards the time of the birthday of Christ, Christmas festivities. We regularly get travelers coming in from the UK who are COVID positive. In fact, within the last 2 weeks, the COVID positive arrivals that we had were 50% from the UK. And there is genetic sequencing going on. We shall have the results soon. We don't know how many of them are necessarily Omicron variants. But if every country were going to put other countries on the ban list because they had 21 cases from that country, very soon you have a large number of countries on your red list. So I do believe that there are other ways of going about it. And we in Nigeria don't regard banning flights and banning movement of people as particularly helpful and supportive. We had the so-called third wave already with the Delta variant that came in. This is what we are looking at as a fourth wave, and it was predicted here. We predicted this as far back as a month ago, that there might be a fourth wave in Nigeria, and it is perhaps in the world, and it is almost accurately manifesting. We hope that it doesn't get to be that, and if it becomes a fourth wave, it will not be in any way deadly to our citizens. But we did predict that there might be a fourth wave, and which will probably have been triggered now by this Omicron variant.
So there you have it. That's the first conversation we're having this morning along the lines of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. And so many countries locking up. And of course, as you see on the front page of one of the papers this morning, in some countries, they're already restricting movements of their own people, lockdown. And of course, the people are already protesting and saying they do not want any more of that. What is our own response here in this country? There are those who are already saying, if you look at remember what we saw on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, and I think one or two others this morning, that look, if other countries are locking away Nigerians, locking out Nigerians, or any other African country, then Nigeria should also reciprocate and lock them out as well. How many cases do we have in Nigeria? As yesterday, we understand it's just 6. In the UK, we understand it's about 80 cases of the Omicron variant specifically. So there are those who are asking, who should be locking who out? Well, what do we know? Let's ask some questions from our guest in Abuja. Okay.
Well, thank you, Ayo. We have with us Dr. Akilia Ishaku, who is a virologist, a public health epidemiologist, a senior lecturer, biological science department, Nasarawa State University, KEFI, and also a member of the West African Consortium to prepare West Africa for the conduct of clinical trials of drugs, vaccines against TB, AIDS, and malaria. Dr. Ishaku, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, Mayope, for having me.
Well, I don't know if you have been following this, the outbreak of Omicron since South Africa, raised the alarm about the discovery of a new variant of COVID-19. It would seem that even though the U.S. president has said it's cause for concern, not cause for panic, but it would seem that the response we have seen has been more panicky than that of concern. How are you reading how countries have responded to the outbreak of this new variant?
Yeah, so the response in terms of
the new protocols.
Okay. Yeah, but so I think it's quite key for us to understand that most especially RNA viruses, not DNA viruses, changes over time. They undergo what is referred to as mutation, either from human to human transmission or from human to animal transmission. Sometimes most of these viruses, when they even have an encounter with the environment, they change their makeup as they begin to multiply or grow. So it was quite, I didn't see it as a surprise, because the former Prime Minister of UK said the West seems to be very safe with COVID, but there will be a new variant. And he was saying that 4 weeks ago, that there will be new variants that will emerge from Africa or Asia. And then in less than 4 weeks, we're having the Omicron variant. So it was quite good. I want to commend the scientists in Botswana and South Africa for doing a very good job. Although there has been debate on whether we should be sharing scientific and very sensitive and valid informations now to the rest of the world, since they also discovered the Omicron variant, and then they have been sanctioned, they have been banned, and all what have you. So I think it is in good direction. Countries are taking measures, optimizing and reviewing their protocol. I think what the US and the UK are doing is a very smart public health measures. Some people will criticize it, but they are saying that, hey, look, we are having a very new variant coming in. We don't know much about it, but we want to protect the well-being of our people. Can we also limit how you come in? We don't do a lot of our surveillance in this part of the world is a bit weak. It's passive, not active. They don't trust our surveillance system. You can see racketeering of COVID-19 vaccination cards. You can see Canada rejecting our PCR, test and all what have you. These are products. These are outcomes of a weak and a very passive surveillance system. So I think I want to commend them for taking that measures, because if you understand
the countries that have taken those measures.
If you understand the dynamics of changes in weather, I've been in Europe for over 7 years, and I know that during this winter period, even without COVID, there are cases of fluke, there are outbreaks of fluke, more so that is associated with COVID. So they are also afraid that this Omicron variant affects younger population. The Delta variants affect older population, and so they are also afraid to say, oh, our productive age will be affected by this variant. So let us study it more. Let us come up with novel interventions to break the chain of transmission and to also understand it better. So I hold this opinion, the school of thought, that it was a very smart public health measures put in place.
Well, you said something about how scientists, you commended the scientists in Southern Africa, Botswana and South Africa, but you said that the measures which they've taken right now could discourage the sharing of information. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
And I think the World Health Organization already raised the same concern, that if the world were to take this sort of move, what it would mean is that a lot of scientists will now begin to conceal information if they know that this is what the response will be.
Absolutely.
So when scientists do discover something, then what exactly do they expect world leaders to do? How do they expect them to react?
Yeah, absolutely, to take certain policies and measures, and which are translated to interventions. And
should it be translated to what countries perceive to be punishment?
Yeah, so those are the negative impact. So you have to look at this thing as a coin, which is a legal tender. You look at it from both sides. You look at it from the positive perspective angle of it, and you also look at it from the negative. So we commend them for doing that. But now, come to think of it, that COVID was discovered in Africa. Africa would have been shocked from the rest of the world. And those are the things that we are canvassing, even as young scientists emerging in Africa, that can we have a continental agenda of vaccine equity? You find out that most of these Western world, they have holded vaccines, COVID vaccines. In fact, over $6 billion vaccine will expire by December. They have gone into booster doses. They have started vaccinating their children. Only 7% of African population are vaccinated. If we don't discuss about vaccine equity, no country in the world is safe. So we must begin to discuss that narrative and bring it to the
But the vaccination doesn't exactly stop the viruses from mutating.
What it does is that it reduces chances of transmission. One, it also of course it reduces chances. If it reduces chances of transmission, then to some extent it reduces the mutation dynamics of it, and so it also reduces the severity of the diseases and confer herd immunity. So a vaccine, it's not to actually stop the mutation, but it reduces the chances of the virus being undergoing mutation.
What is quite interesting is that with this particular variant, much as the South African authorities were the ones who raised an alarm, we also heard from the Netherlands that they, in fact, had discovered Omicron, the Omicron variant, way before South Africa discovered it.
Absolutely.
So in the light of that information, should we be seeing the sort of protocols that we're seeing being taken by other countries?
So people will look at this in the light of racism, in the light of so we just need to ban people coming from the underdeveloped world and all what have you. What the Netherlands, the Dutch government did was that to actually subject their genomic surveillance into protocols. So for every scientific experiment that you carry out, there are protocols. So we are discussing last night that also the South African and the Botswana government health sciences actually jump certain protocols. It was good that they announced it on time, the new variant, but they have to follow certain protocols, and then you have to look at, I think there are about 7 steps for you to also notify the WHO. I think they jump about 2 or 3 of the protocols. So the Dutch government, what they did was actually to be sure. They weren't too certain about whether it is the precision and accuracy of their surveillance system was about 86%. They needed to because the WHO protocol said you have to update it to about 90 to 92%. So they have to wait. They have to bring experts to review it, and then before they forwarded it. In fact, they forwarded their findings to the technical group on viruses evolution a week before the South African and Botswana dictated theirs. In fact, Botswana dictated the variant among diplomats. So the question, Maokwe, is that why is it that they did not tell us the identity of the foreign diplomats? Those are the things that we need to discuss. So are they concealing the identity of the diplomats? So once you have a public health pandemic threat that is global in nature, we need to see how we can be able to follow protocols in order to go into scientific information sharing.
In the light of that information, shouldn't anything change in terms of how leaders react? Because I know that, yes, there's a scientific part, which is the part you are particularly concerned about.
Absolutely.
But it would seem that with COVID now, it has political implications. And scientists cannot say, oh, that's not really our field. That's now left for political actors. But when they rely on advice from scientists, one would have to question again, the reaction that they have, the steps that they have now taken to react to that information. It doesn't seem to be logical.
Yeah, you can look at it from a mirror and say that it is not logical, but scientifically it is logical. Scientifically it is logical because it's just, and that's why we are calling on the Nigerian government to tighten up the surveillance system in Nigeria, because we are entering into a festive season, because we have not yet experienced our 4th wave. We're entering into a festive Christmas season that is characterized by outbreaks of Lassa fever, that is characterized by outbreaks of meningitis. We have not yet finished with the cholera outbreak. Is that okay? So we are like a pandemic in an epidemic, or an epidemic in a pandemic. So we just need to take certain measures. It's not going to be long. Yeah, this is a new virus. We are trying to understudy it. We are trying to look at it. How does it behave? How does it, get transmitted from one person to another? What is the mortality rate? In fact, in Nigeria, we have not even done mortality surveillance to look at how many people are dying. Yes, we have the figure. What is responsible for their death? What are the comorbidities associated with that? Are they, most of these case fatality rate, are they associated with vaccine intake, or are they associated with non-vaccination? We just need to come up with detailed scientific positions on this. So so it's not about taking a hard decision. I know even the ban from the UK government and the US government is not going to last 3 weeks to a month, because they just wanted to understand. And actually, Mark, this is a very volatile season in the West because of winter, and you know that viruses thrive more in winter season. So I agree with you that certain policies from scientific inferences needs to be given allowances for more this thing to be done. But I in all honesty, if you my personal candid opinion is that it was a smart public health measures to beat, because you can look at the economic impact, you can look at if it affects a younger population, you can look at how many people, if they are down, they'll be out of their productive, time to work and all what of you. So a lot of health economics implication is being, factored into taking certain policies.
Okay, let's flip this to Lagos now. I understand my colleague Ayo has questions for you. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Malkwe. Doctor, let me have your response to this statement attributed to another scientist, Dr. Jonathan Obaje, in Singapore, who said, and I quote, "We now have enough scientific capabilities to confirm in one more week whether or not Omicron variant is less lethal than Delta variant. So far, many reports from across the globe indicate so." He went further to say that in the event that Omicron is confirmed less lethal, expedient action thereafter will be for everyone to open gates for Omicron to quickly spread and become dominant globally. Omicron will then become the new harmless COVID-19 virus. Do you agree with him?
Actually, the audibility is been, so can you come again, sir? Sorry.
What this scientist is saying is Omicron has been found to be far less lethal than the Delta variant. And if that is the case, everyone, let all nations open their gates so that it can become another far less lethal, variant of the COVID-19, as has been done before of the previous coronavirus diseases.
So if Omicron is less lethal compared to Delta variants, other nations should open their gates for other people to come in. We must also understand the dynamics when we are comparing two variants of emerging viruses, most especially of SARS-CoV-2. I did not solely align my thoughts to that. This is because, like I shared with Maokwe some few minutes ago, we do not really understand the pathology, the pathogenesis of these new variants. In fact, data that has been relied solely on the South African population, literatures coming up from case series analysis, cohorts, case studies from South Africa, shows that it is more among university students, so among the younger population. It does not confer more hospitalization, longer hospitalization stay. It also does not, the effectiveness of this variant does not impair diagnostic technique. It means that the testing panels that we have can be able to take care of the variants. Also, it does not confer less effectiveness on the vaccine that we have. It shows that this vaccine can be able to take care of the new variants. So I did not actually align my thoughts to that, because it is a virus, it is a pandemic that is ongoing, and we need to have time to study this. This is because if we open, if we, even Nigeria as a country, if we open up to other nations to come in, we will have an explosion, because we have not yet met up with the 40% COVID vaccination target by WHO. We are around 8 to 9%, the target rate. So I strongly believe that we need to tighten up certain measures, which are quite key. It can be temporal, but it is to prevent the well-being of the nations. So in all honesty, I go with that smart move for public health interventions.
And you will also remember, well, you may be aware that even in the UK, opinions seem divided as to whether or not the closures, the travel restrictions should even be as it is now, because already, according to the president of the School of Emergency Medicine in the UK. She said, as far as she's concerned, the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, she said, as far as she's concerned, the travel restrictions came too late. Better, merge that, juxtapose that information with the fact that in the UK, they have recorded something in the region of 60 to 80 cases of Omicron already, but in Nigeria, we've only recorded 6. So there are those who are wondering, what's going on here? Is this really medicine? Is this really about medicine or about politics?
So you cannot separate medicine from politics, right? Or you can also separate politics from medicine. So we have the international public health politics coming into play. So what I just want to make a submission here is that, we cannot just compare that because UK had 15 to 18 cases of Omicron and Nigeria, we just discovered 6. Why should the UK locked its doors to Nigeria and also ban visitors visa? The issue here is that how active is our surveillance system? How active is our surveillance system? We cannot compare the surveillance system of the United Kingdom with that of Nigeria. In fact, I hope you are aware that the Omicron variants that we got from Nigeria are retrospective. There are samples that we have gotten 3 to 4 weeks ago. We have not yet looked at people that came into the country some few days ago from high-risk country. So our surveillance system is retrospective. Epidemiologically, it is passive in nature. So we cannot make comparison based on the number of cases alone. We should also make comparison based on public health interventions. We should also make comparison based on the activeness of our surveillance system. A few weeks ago...
Or you're just speculating that maybe we haven't.
Turkey.
Just a second, Dr. Kiala. Can you confirm that indeed we haven't, this that you're talking about now has not been done, or you're just assuming that there is a likelihood that we haven't done it?
It was done in retrospect.
Can you confirm? Do you have that on good authority, or you're just speaking as a scientist?
No, I'm speaking as a scientist because when we got the first 2 cases, it was on the media, it was on the news that it was retrospectively, pinned down. So what we need from the Nigerian government is to come to tell us that these samples that we got are from inbound travelers within so period of time, because that is descriptive epidemiology, person, place, and time. It is quite key. It is known that the first 2 cases that we are gotten retrospectively.
Okay, well, now, the question then again along this same line would be, now, this is the situation that, excuse me, this is the situation that we have on our hands. And you have clearly given the Nigerian government, at least the authorities, especially the Presidential Steering Committee on this pandemic that we're dealing with, some agenda to follow through. Now, as you have also said, we have a challenge of even getting people to take the vaccines. And even if people go ahead and take the vaccines, just as you have also said, there's quite a huge gap of people who have not taken it. So where then does this leave us in Nigeria on this particular issue?
Come again. The audibility is not too... Okay.
I'm asking, where do you see us going from here? What do you expect us to be doing right now on this particular issue, especially given the challenges that you have listed out? Oh dear. Well, it's like Dr. Akiala cannot hear me. Well, I guess, Markwe, you may want to take it from here.
No, you can come again. Just go.
Okay.
I'm hearing you now.
Okay. I was just asking, in your opinion, since this is the position that we are in now, what would be your recommendation going forward? first to, I mean, you've given government their own. What should we, the people, be doing? Or are we completely, helpless? The surveillance issues that you raised, for instance, we had a conversation with the Deputy Director of Surveillance at the NCDC and says they are doing everything they can, even in partnership with the state government. So, in your opinion, what is missing as far as the surveillance is concerned?
That valid question. It is time now for the NCDC to decentralize its coordination. We coordinate so heavily at the center, and the state tends not to actually key in into most of the on the framework. So let me give you an instance. When we had challenge with HIV and AIDS, the NACA, which is the National Coordinating Body, went to states to establish SACA, which is State Action Committee on AIDS. And then surveillance activity that was passive at that time became active. And then in terms of reporting cases, in fact, a lot of NGOs came in, a lot of public health centers were keying into the fight against HIV and AIDS. But for COVID, the coordination seems to be more on the center, which is the NCDC. I will, as a younger brother to the new DG of NCDC, advised him to have an interface with the Nigerian Governors Forum. Let every respective state form their own Center for Disease Control with the same structure that we have in NCDC for proper coordination. So I'm expecting, I'm from Nasarawa State, for us to have something like Nasarawa State Center for Disease Control, just like the SACA we have in terms of NACA for the control for HIV and AIDS, specifically not for COVID, but for other emerging infectious diseases. This will be key. Secondly, you can see that people have started doubting the integrity of our test results. NACA, Canada, is saying that, hey, we cannot get your PCR, we cannot trust your PCR, results. I was coming from Turkey some few weeks ago. The Turkish government said, hey, you just need to do another test in Istanbul. I did one very quick instantaneous test for COVID at Istanbul airport that took only 5 minutes. I'm expecting that our Port Health Authority should be quite robust, well equipped, that we can also do this test.
But we don't do PCR. We insist on PCR.
Yeah, we insist on PCR.
And it can be done in 5 minutes, can it?
Yeah, but PCR can be done in 30 minutes. Once you have a machine called a gene expert that can be repurposed for, initially it was designed to test for resistant TB, but now it has been repurposed. Cartridges have been manufactured. In fact, some gene expert now can test in less than 30 minutes. And then we have 16 modules, 20 modules. So if you have like 10 a gene expert machine for 20 modules, it can do 200 tests in 30 minutes. Even if you travel to Ghana today, you cannot enter into Ghana until you do another test in the airport. This is part of measures to strengthen, our surveillance system, which is quite key, and people pay for that. So it will be good for us to look at this. And issues of fake results of COVID, how often do we do auditing of our past specimens from private molecular labs? So the government must also think in that direction to see how the integrity, the precision and accuracy of most of our PCR results are being adhered to and enhanced.
Well, it's a fine place to live, Dr. Eshako. We have to thank you so much. I think it's quite instructive. We have to go and look at that list again if Ghana was affected, and if they weren't, we have to ask questions. Why wasn't Ghana affected by these restrictions? And
Ghana was not affected by this restriction because of the measures they have in their...
Big lesson indeed. But we have to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts this morning. Dr. Akele Eshako is the virologist, the public health epidemiologist, a senior lecturer, biological science department, Nasarawa State University, KEFI, and also a member of the West African Consortium to prepare West Africa for the conduct of clinical trials of drugs, vaccines against TB, AIDS, and malaria. Thank you for coming on Sunrise once again.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
We'll take a break at this point. We'll be back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Let's switch to security now, and joining us this morning to talk about this and several other issues around it is Alfred Ononugbo, who is a security consultant, a criminal intelligence specialist, and a forensic investigator. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's always my joy to be here with you.
Well, so many things have been happening. I don't even know where to begin right now. But, you know, reading through reports of those who experienced the attacks on Maiduguri and the responses of the government to it and the appeal of the governor of the state that the army needs to be a little more aware, a little more proactive, a little more ahead of the issues, seeing that they came much closer home than before. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. Let me first condole with the families of those that were killed at that attack, and also the state and people of Borno. Of course, Nigerians in general.
So far, it seems that from the records of the army, as far as the army is concerned, there was no fatality in that attack.
Well, that's what the army said, but media and also the governor was quoted to have admitted that about 10 lives were lost, out of which 9 were children. I think that's an area we need to improve on in dealing with the challenges of the insurgency. If people are not well informed, the social media is an open ground. They create information and people cannot be kept. You know, gone are the days when the official channel of educating and enlightening the people was just the government spokesperson. Today with social media, information flies in seconds. So you cannot say there's an official government position any longer. It used to obtain in the past when there were limitations on open source intelligence. And I think that's one area we might be looking at, encouraging the government to make some adjustments. But information out there shows that lives were lost, and I sincerely want to condole with those families.
Well, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to even wonder how this happened in the first place. I mean, you're a forensic investigator. In terms of getting ahead of the issues or even trying to resolve it, what are the things that you would be looking for? What are the things that you would expect the authorities to take a look at? I mean, look at some of the pictures that we saw on the screen, and I'm sure that they will still come on again. I also recalled one of the reports read, you know, that one of the people who said he just heard a loud noise and he went out and he concluded, as far as he's concerned, it was a mortar bomb, whatever that means. So in terms of at least unraveling what exactly happened, what are the things you would recommend? Look at these pictures. What are the things you would recommend that the authorities should be looking at? Perhaps one would say that the crime scene has already been tampered with?
I've always maintained that our intelligence platforms should be a very serious concern to us as a nation. And there must be concerted effort to build the structures for intelligence gathering. The world, like I said, have moved on. There are certain things that cannot happen in certain places because of the kind of infrastructure, security infrastructure they've deployed to check the flow of threats. And that is a very serious thing. Now, when you look at it from a conventional perspective, the army seems to have made inroads in pushing back the insurgents or the terrorists, because for them to revert to engagement in the dimension they've gone to now shows that they can no longer move freely around. The era of using human beings as transmitting devices are gone. We don't record, a lot of suicide bombing experiences anymore in this whole insurgency. So it also shows that they've also upgraded. They've moved from using human shield or human vehicles for attacks to acquiring sophisticated weapons that has the capacity to engage the government and the soldiers from vantage positions. So we need to look at the structure of our intelligence gathering, because that is what will determine the performance of the men on ground. If they don't have intelligence, if they don't have any way of gathering information, it will be a big challenge on their planning. Now, what intelligence gathering does is that it helps the government, it helps the army to understand the activities of the insurgents and plan effectively on how to meet them on their ground and neutralize them. So there is a need to review our intelligence structures. We also need to know what are their challenges. One thing is to identify that we're having problem with intelligence gathering. Another thing is to know what exactly are their problems, are there conflicts, are there challenges, are there issues that has impeded on their capacity to get to places at the right time, get the right information. So these are things that...
But there's some, my apologies for butting in. Some of these issues are not unknown to the authorities. For instance, we've had cases where, even some images that circulated all over the place, that the topography of some of these areas make it difficult for security personnel to move around, for their vehicles to move around. And there are a lot of ungoverned, parts of the country and all of that. So one wonders if these are known to us and these are some of the vulnerabilities that we have, what then can be done?
This is 2021, and the deployment of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, has become a common strategy in intelligence gathering. We also have the open source intelligence gathering, which helps because, you see, one of the things the terrorists want to do is to also send messages out. They needed to publish their activities. They want to gain endorsements from their groups, and they also need the social media platform. They are on the internet. They have websites. So through open source intelligence, we can harvest information that will be very critical, very useful. We don't need to be in those dangerous terrains. We can deploy. We have Nigeria has the resources, if put in place, to deploy technologies that could help detect time-based information from the activities of these terrorists. I'm aware that some years back we made effort at launching a satellite in the orbit. Now, we need these equipment today. We need these technologies today, because it's not everywhere you send human beings. And some engagements are most efficient when you use technologies that can knock out these guys and reduce human casualty.
Is it that we don't know these things? Because, just recently, the Vice President, was speaking, and he made the same call, asking that, we should be more, we should leverage technology. And I don't think it is something that is unknown to us. For instance, let me quote the Vice President. At a time when national resources are stretched thin, we have to come up with technology-driven solutions to addressing our security needs. And he also called that we should be more proactive, not reactive. In terms of being proactive, what has been missing? The question that I usually ask when these things happen is, How can such a thing happen and we didn't know about it? I don't believe, I maintain it, that we have an intelligentsia or an intelligence community in this country that does not know what to do. So, in terms of getting ahead, of being proactive, what are we missing?
My take is actually that there is a conflict of interest somewhere. The political class wants to maintain their hold on their areas and present themselves to be doing what the people want. And sometimes ethno-religious interests creep in. Secondly, some of these minds are embedded within our communities. They are part of our social and community, structures. And then to knock them out, sometimes you find that they are linked to certain values that dominate the thinking, dominate the thoughts of that community.
Is this information unknown to us?
Well, it's not about being known to us. It's about having the political and patriotic will to ensure that the right thing is done at the right time, irrespective of the consequences. But for a politician, he thinks about the next election. He thinks about, 2023.
So you see more politics at play here than...
Definitely.
Oh dear.
We have a big issue with our political class. We lack the political leaders of yesteryears who were driven by vision, passion, and discipline. People who came to give. They were using their resources to serve the people. We've left that era totally. We are looking at benefactors from a kind of challenge system.
Okay.
That's why we talk about, which is not part of this discussion today, the consequence of corruption, in a state.
So you see a nexus among all these issues joined together?
Extremely,
okay.
Yes.
Well, there's another perspective to this conversation, and it's happening in Abuja. Markwe.
Thank you, Ayo. We have with us this morning Commander Manu Yagda, who is a retired Navy Commodore. He's a member of the Presidential Think Tank on Defense and Security, and also the Chairman Foundation for Civilian Peace in Nigeria. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning, Commander.
Thank you very much, except that you are not hearing from the microphone.
No, it's fine. As long as you can hear me, it's fine.
Yeah.
So let's get the conversation started. A few incidents have happened in recent times that have, caused, I don't want to say, let's say it is called for some concern, among stakeholders. We know about the ongoing insurgency in the Northeast. Some progress has been made to the extent that the governor is now trying to empty the camps, the IDP camps, and saying people can go back to their communities. I mean, there have been cases where people have been empowered and asked to return back to their original communities, or at least to stay within Maiduguri, but just leave the camps. And the governor is also saying that NGOs should not give any humanitarian assistance to these people anymore. However, the explosions which rocked Maiduguri 2 days ago or 3 days ago, threatened to destabilize all of the progress that seems to have been made. Where would you say we are with regards to returning peace and quiet to the Northeast region, especially Maiduguri?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to clear some air on what happened in Maiduguri about 2-3 days ago. Actually, it was an RPG that was fired by the insurgents into 1004. And mark you, that was not the only place. They fired it at Jemtilo, where military people keep security. Then they fired it on the other side of Auno. Now, the one of 1,000 housing estates, which landed into the housing estate, where we have some casualties. You see, these insurgents, each time military claims that they have degraded insurgents to a certain level, in order to register their presence, they normally come closer to the town and then fire their RPG and then go back. That's one thing. Another thing is, each time these people, they want show their presence, when they fire their RPG in a particular direction, meanwhile, they have their own tacticians. They try to enter Maiduguri. Enter Maiduguri, not to capture Maiduguri, not to do anything, but their intention is to register their presence. There are 3 areas where they normally enter Maiduguri. Number one, they enter through Muna. The other come from Dushman, or they enter through Jidari, Polo estates. Those are the two major areas where they normally enter. That side of the Auno, that's the Jemtilo side. Because it is banned by military, they don't normally enter that side. They normally attack through that side if they want to transfer their logistics from northern Borno to southern Borno. That's why they normally inform us. So what happened in Maiduguri 3 days ago, it is not something new. Not that something has changed. It is true that when military say there's no cause for alarm, because it's a regular thing. So there's nothing special about the presence of Boko Haram. Now, there's one thing. Somebody says that the insurgents are getting closer to
just before you say that, when the military says there's no cause for alarm, there's no cause for alarm. But if they are firing, because these places which you are talking about,
yes,
they are new settlements. They are the places where the government has recently built up, so that people can go and stay there.
1,000 houses is not a new settlement. It was built since during Ali Modi Sharif's time.
But people live there.
Yeah, people live there. But it's not a new settlement. People live there.
So if people live there and they are firing into the places that people live, isn't that frightening?
No, it's frightening. It's frightening because at least we have some casualties. It is frightening. But what I'm saying is, the way people put it as if there's a new trend of attack on Maiduguri. No. Firing of RCB into the town, it has been a regular thing. Since the time when because let me tell you something. The insurgent we have in the northeast, it is not the insurgent we were having between 2010 to 2015. Because between 2010 to 2015, there was a contest, territorial contest in the area. But now, after 2015, from 2016 to date, they have jettisoned the idea of territorial contest. They just want to register their presence in Maiduguri, I mean in the northeast, and then they have turned it into commercial venture. So that's what is going on.
How do they profit from that?
Okay. I will tell you something. Before Shekau faction, ISWAP faction, which is Al-Barnawi, brought out from Shekau faction. What ISWAP is doing, they try to buy the minds of the populace. Now, how do you see? Asking how do they make money? Any area that is controlled by ISWAP, the people in that area, they pay tax. If you are moving with your vehicle, they have their checkpoint in the bush. If you are moving with your vehicle, they stop you. If you are not a military man, you are not a government worker, you are not this thing, they will not touch you. Only pay tax and then pass. But if you are a military man or government function or NYS or something, they will arrest you. And now, if I tell you the areas they control in the northeast, in Borno in particular, you'll be surprised. Because if you leave Biu, you are going to Maiduguri. As soon as you reach one village, they call it Mandara Ground. They have their checkpoints down to Sabongari, down to Damboa. Civilians can play that side, but government workers, military, if you play that side at your own. So all the people around that area, for your information, they are being controlled by these people. If you're Fulani man enters your farm, for instance, and then they eat your crop, you can take the case to them, they will judge, and they pass judgment. Till now, as I'm talking to you, they pass judgment and they say, okay, pay so amount of money.
They're controlling territory.
Till tomorrow. Till tomorrow. So we are talking about Maiduguri. Let me tell you something. 5 kilometers outside Maiduguri, nobody goes more than 5 kilometers outside Maiduguri without an escort. So now that they have come closer, they have been close, 5 kilometers. And this has been there since 2016 to date.
So when they now fire rockets into Maiduguri, you say we shouldn't be alarmed?
Yeah, no, it's painful that actually we have casualty. But we see when somebody gets alarmed, you think maybe whether the insurgency is escalating or is increasing. No, it is not. They only register their presence. And for your information, as Christmas is coming now, we'll start experiencing a lot of attacks into Maiduguri, just to register their presence.
And there's nothing we can do about it to quell it, since we already know that we can anticipate this.
You see, there are so many things. But now you want to take me into another area. What you are trying to say is, what can government do? Those are the areas. Let me tell you something. Even the military They are trying their best. But there are some peculiar things that unless the political will is there, we'll just be wasting our time. Well, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm telling you, if we have not changed the way we handle things in this country, for the next 10 to 15 years, insurgency is not going to end in the Northeast. For your own information. I will tell you one thing. Today, we will get an information that Boko Haram is mustering in a particular area. We will let the military know. So, okay, Boko Haram is mustering in so and so place. Hardly can military either detach a helicopter to go to that place, to go and liquidate that place, and come back. In most cases, when you say, okay, the military have reacted and demolishing Boko Haram, all this and that, it is the Boko Haram that have initiative. They bring the attack. Then we react.
Why is that so?
Well, I think I would like to bring another thing. In this present military setup, there is a level of cooperation between the army and the Air Force to a certain level. But before this administration, there was totally no cooperation between the Air Force and the army. And you know, in modern warfare, nobody wins war alone.
So you put this down to a lack of cooperation that used to exist between the agencies, but you say that it is improving. So,
it's improving to a certain level.
If it is improving and we are still at the point whereby we hear that
you know where the problem comes from? Mm-hmm. Up to now, as I'm talking to you, we do not have what is called real joint operation in the Northeast. Because it is the Chief of Army Staff that appoints the theater commander. Not the Chief of Defense Staff, it's the Chief of Army Staff. And now if it is a joint operation, DHQ, which is being controlled by Chief of Defense Staff, is supposed to appoint the theater commander. If he appoints the theater commander, because the Chief of Defense Staff is the head of the three services. He's the head of the three services. If he appoints the Chief of Defense Staff, now they will have air elements.
Theater commander, you mean?
Yeah, theater commander. The man in charge of the whole operation in the Northeast. Now, if the Chief of Defense Staff appoints it, that means Army, Navy, Air Force, they are all under the Chief of Defense Staff. They are under they are under the theater commander. But as I'm talking to you now, yeah, gentlemanly, they operate under the theater commander. But in reality, now Nigerian Air Force is not under Nigerian Army. Neither Nigerian Navy is under the Nigerian Army. So if Nigerian Army say, okay, we should go and do this, the Air Force man there, he cannot just go because he has his own service chief, and his service chief must give him permission first before he goes. This is a lacuna. And we'll be insisting, let there be a joint operation. Joint operation was abolished since the time of Ihe Jerika and Wala Ibrahim. I remember Wala Ibrahim. That was the time when they abolished joint operation and created 7DIF. And that was based on sentiments, based on parochial reasons that they established that operation. So until such operation is converted, because look, let's say about 2 o'clock now, and there's an attack, and you need on the army, and you need air support. The theater commander can say, okay, Air Force, go to that place. Just tell the Air Force, then the Air Force will tell the CAS, the Chief of Air Staff. Then the Chief also, the Air Staff go. So these are the problems. Until such problems are rectified. But from look at things, people are not ready to rectify the problem for obvious reasons.
What is the obvious? I'm not saying a reason. You say for obvious reasons. The reasons are not obvious to me.
The truth of the matter is, ego is always there. Political will is always there. Because today, if I were to be the Minister of Defense, the first thing I will do is to structure the armed forces as a Minister of Defense. I will remove that operation from the Nigerian Army and then hand over to Chief of Defense Staff. in that case, if there's any lopsidedness, if anything happens, I know who to hold. But now, the operation is under the Nigerian Army. And there's an attack on army formation. If Nigerian Army calls for air support, and maybe they didn't get it on time and it resulted into casualty, who do you hold responsible? You cannot hold the Nigerian Air Force. You cannot hold the Nigerian Air Force because either nobody told them or they were given the information late. But if they are under the theater commander directly, immediately there is a report. The theater commander will just give operation without taking permission from the Chief of Army Staff.
Isn't that going to be problematic? Because some people believe that, I mean, what you're saying for a number of people might be far-fetched, but, it's a reality. There have been questions as to why, the DHQ is not as coordinating as it ought to be. It's not playing that coordination role which it ought to be played. But some people have also spoken about the rank of who the theater commander will be. Isn't that going to be a bit problematic?
No.
Will he be of the same rank as, say, the Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Air Staff? And
yeah, exactly. This is one of the reasons. I will tell you one typical example. Assuming the Air Force officer in charge of the Northeast is a vice AVM, Air Vice Marshal, and then the theater commander is a Major General. Supposing the theater commander is junior to the AVM, the Air Force, how do you think the order will be effective? I can't take order from my junior just like that. Yeah, gentlemen, yes, but I cannot take order from my junior. But if it's under the DHQ, DHQ will appoint the theater commander based on rank. But the Nigerian Army can change the theater commander at any time he feels like the former regime. Some of them 6 months they will change them. And by the time you appoint a senior Air Force officer in that place, then immediately they change the theater commander to a Major General who is junior to the Air Force. He can't give him order. So these are the things. We want everything to move under the Chief of Defense Staff.
And the three, there's a theater command which you say yes, the Army is currently in charge of. But the three services cannot appoint their own individual, leaders to jointly cooperate with the Army in the operation.
They can appoint. They do appoint. But what I'm telling you now is, assuming now, let me just paint a picture. Assuming the theater commander, the present theater commander.
Because there has to be a leader. There
has to be an
overall leader.
Assuming the theater commander now is a regular 56, let's say for example. And then Air Force and Navy say, okay, since the theater commander is regular 56, let them appoint regular 57 or 58 in the Army, in the Air Force and the Navy. He's there. But at any time the Chief of Army Staff likes, he can change that Major General because he's in charge. And he brings somebody that is junior to those people. Must Air Force start looking for this to change their appointments? Because everybody has his own appointment organogram.
It's a problem.
It's a problem. So until such a time, such problems are corrected, we continue to have a problem in the Northeast.
Wow. Let's quickly flip this to Lagos now and see what reactions my colleague has from our guests in the studios there. Ayo.
It's interesting that I'm not a guest on this program because there are so many questions buzzing in my head. I'm pretty sure the same for Mr. Ononubu here. First of all, your reactions to some of the things that you've heard.
You can see that he's talking from experience, and that's true. There's a protocol, and if you breach that operational protocol, you create other problems. And I think that's what he's emphasizing on.
How significant is that in the fight against this insurgency?
Well, you see, the military operates a chain of command, and that's a fact. Seniority is seniority, and something makes you a senior. Experience, responsibilities, and of course, that's what determines the ranking. Plus, also, you are a year of joining the service. However, we come back to being patriotic. We come back to accepting the fact that we have threats that that's overwhelming, that is bringing the entire country down. Economically, we are suffering. Socially, we are dying. And look at the menace of COVID. With all these threats, there's little we can expect to happen. No matter the magic the government, waves around. So it's a very critical issue, and I will crave the indulgence of the Minister of Defense to take this in and let them process it and come out with something that could just be one part of solving the problem. The other challenge is, of course, we must accept the responsibility to fight for one united, indivisible Nigeria.
We'll come to that. But check on the issue again of what he talked about, the responsibility of the army chiefs, specifically the Chief of Defense Staff. In the situation that we have on our hands, just what is supposed to be the task that the Chief of Defense Staff should be performing here? He has talked about the fact that he needs to be the one making the appointment, so that all those, if the appointment is from the CDS, all those from other services in the military apparatus, the Air Force, the Navy, and everyone would know that it's coming from someone above their direct bosses. How significant is that?
Very critical, because if we don't have the order flowing from the right chain of command, it cannot flow. One is that you are accountable to your service. So the army accounts for the operations, the Air Force gives account to their head, and the same goes with the Navy, including the police, the DSS. So if we have, like he is suggesting, a joint operation, and that is well structured, recognizing that the rank means a lot to people in service, is part of an established protocol, then that should be a good option to look at. But then the other side of it is also to eliminate the politics of seniority, religion, and ethnicity. Because I know when we talk about national security issues, we are careful not to inflame things or allow innuendos that suggest certain things. But these are critical problems that has eaten deep into the fiber of our society.
Interestingly, he seems to pay a lot more attention to the what do you call it, the kinetic interventions now, and the shortfalls that has existed in that over time, especially coming against the background of the fact that the president has more than once, more than twice, called for coordination among the services to get this job done, so that we can eliminate it. It's tiring. It's almost like we're insensitive when these things happen. People's lives are lost, people's property are destroyed, people's well-being or livelihood is displaced, and we seem to just repeat the cycle, or as someone said, we recycle insecurity.
Yeah, you see, you have to ask me, what are the criteria for appointing these heads of these services? Performance should be one. Record in service should be another, not just years or rank. And if we have a category or class of personnel in the service whose relevance has been outlived, or who are no longer in touch. For instance, we're talking about deploying technology. I'm a forensic person, and we believe in using technology to solve the problems of crime. Now, you are deploying technology, and a man that is analog-minded is heading a digital-driven activity. Certainly, you will not get much done. He will depend on aides to make those decisions, just take credit. So you won't feel the impact of his leadership. It will be like using the media to promote a good governor when actually nothing is happening on the ground. And I think that's the kind of challenges we may have to look into. There are salient things coming up because of the prevalence of insurgency. It's not abating, and we are worried. Questions are now coming, issues are coming up, but there doesn't seem to be a matching response to sit down analyze these problems and prefer workable solutions. We are repeating the same thing, and I think we must, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but we must take away the security situation from what we call the federal character issue. Because if you say, of course, it's a sensitive thing because we polarize along ethnic and religious lines. So you now have to play the federal character thing to make sure that there's harmony. But if we are making an appointment based on merit, based on choices that these guys have done this in the past, they've been in these assignments, and these were the results they produced, we're going to see merit-driven service. We're also going to see discipline, because the person driving that project knows that a lot is at stake. And this is about over 200 million Nigerians that must be kept safe. This is about the future of our children that must be secured. So he works for the future, not for the past, not to make a name and not to see opportunity to make extra income. These are things that we may need to look at. And if we have, for instance, the DSS, I don't know what other establishment, because in each service they have their intelligence arm that filters the role, the records, the performance track records of every personnel. They should activate this system and make sure that they are credible, so that I don't favor a friend, I don't favor someone that will remember me and take care of me when he gets there.
Speak to the issue he raised also about ego playing a role. He talked about political will, and you've talked about the salience of seniority in the military hierarchy and all of that. Juxtaposing that seniority and all of those things with patriotism and the call by the president, again I mention it, for coordination among the services. Where is the nexus? You've called out the Minister of Defense also to get ahead of the issue. What should he be doing, especially factoring this issue factor in?
I think the Minister of Defense certainly might be handicapped, because it's a national issue. Our perception of patriotism in the country has gone down so badly. Even if he's going to make that decision, you will see people tell him, you don't do this, you do that. There are silent things that happen inside the system that doesn't come out. But they play out because if we have to deal with ego, yes, if I'm your senior, I'm your senior. But if I'm an incompetent senior, your seniority is useless. So if you are not shown the way out because somebody wants to keep you in a system where you are no longer productive, then we are harming that system. We are destroying that system.
Who is going to do the sifting? Whose job is it to do the sifting?
The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But he's the one that's been calling.
Commander-in-Chief.
He's the one that's been calling for coordination.
He has a national security advisor who is half of his brain when it comes to security matters. We have other establishments that guide the president's decisions on certain security issues. So I think that it will be natural for me to say Mr. President should take seriously these choices, and it might cost him his popularity, if possible, within certain space, but Nigeria stands to gain if the right choices are made for people who run our affairs and manage our security situation as it stands now. We need an emergency, and we cannot wait anymore.
Well, interestingly, the president in May set up some committee to ensure that they face that one and hopefully ensure that coordination as well. And let's hope they are at work and able to get ahead of these kinds of things. Alfred Onugbo, security consultant, forensic investigator, thank you so much for your time this morning.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Makwe.
Well, Commander, we're still with you, and even though the incident in the Northeast is one of them, there have also been concerns along the Abuja-Kaduna road, and as people will be traveling in this season, I think that, they want to travel in peace. They want to experience some tranquility while they travel. So what are your thoughts in terms of how we can ensure that there's security on our roads?
Okay. Thank you very much. The issue of insecurity along Nigerian roads, I will still push the blame back to the government, not to the security agencies.
To the government?
To the government.
Specifically?
Specifically, not to the security agency.
Why?
Let me tell you something. If I were to be Mr. President today, I will call all the service chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, DGSS, Interior, call all of them. Say, okay, the issue of insecurity along our roads must be stopped. Number one, are these criminals more trained than the security agencies in Nigeria? The answer is capital no. Do they have money more than Nigerian government? The answer is no. Do they have more people more than the security agencies in Nigeria? The answer is no. Do they have more support from international connection more than Nigerian government? The answer is no. Then why should you allow these riffraffs to hold this country to ransom?
I'm sure the president has asked that question.
No, but not asking the question. You can ask the question.
We've seen him summon them to the
villa
many times.
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
Forget about the question he asked. I said if I were to be him, and let's take and if something happens between Abuja to Kaduna, like what happened last week, I will tell the service chiefs, I'm giving you guys 48 hours to get these people arrested. If you don't get these people arrested, I will deal with you. If Mr. President fire the IGP, fire either the DGSS or the service chiefs who are supposed to be in charge of that thing, and then bring in new people, and then this service chiefs, you keep them under arrest. The people that you are going to bring them newly, you will see how they'll stop. But in this country, you commit offense, you do something, and nobody talks to you, so you go there and then relax. I'm telling you, if there's a political will, give this country 6 to 9 months, there will be nothing like insurgency, nothing like kidnapping, nothing like banditry in Nigeria.
Well, you're a member of this presidential. You're a member of the presidential think tank.
You see, your own advice. Your own, we have done our constitutional responsibility. We give advice.
You're putting up
but it is not mandatory that the CNC will take your advice. That's one thing. So these are two things.
But have you put up advice that he's taken?
Of course, we have written it several times. Several times. By the time you fire the service chiefs, 1, 2, 3, the people that you are bringing them new, you see how they will sit up. They will bounce on their immediate juniors. Their immediate juniors will bounce on their subordinates, and you see what will happen in this country. But in this country, we commit offense, and nobody talks to you. You go back, by the time they kidnap some people on the road, as the Inspector General of Police or the services, you go and say, okay, you people should go on operation, and you just relax in your house. Whether they get the people, whether they get, nothing happens to them, because they know that nobody's going to fire them. All the service chiefs, they are Mr. President appointees. He hired them, he can fire them at any time he likes.
Well, we'll wait to see what other resolutions will be coming out from the presidential think tank. We have to thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I have something very important to say.
I'm sorry, Commander, we're totally out of time. I wish we could take some more, sadly. Well, we hope to have you another time. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning. Commander Manu Yagda is a retired Navy commander and also a member of the presidential think tank on defense and security and chairman Foundation for Civilian Peace in Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning.
It's an honor to be here.
Well, that's all we have to leave you for this segment. We're going to be turning our attention to something also equally important. Please stay with us.
The 16 days of activism against gender-based violence is an international campaign to raise awareness and generate action to end violence against women and girls. The First Lady of Zamfara State is keen into this year's campaign to lead an advocacy to prominent people in the state to seek their support to end violence against women and girls in the state. She begins with a visit to the Emir of Gusau, Alhaji Ibrahim Bello, and appeals to the monarch to sensitize his people on gender-based violence.
Going forward, our commitment is to make sure that these laws are being passed. If, as you are aware, the first reading has been sat in the National Assembly for the Child's Right Act, which protects the girl child and women in our society. And my husband and his administration is working tirelessly to make sure that this law is being passed.
This year's campaign is coming amidst alarming reports of the prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence across the country. The State Commissioner for Education, Zainab Gumi, reveals that the state recorded high numbers of reports. Cases of gender-based violence during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown.
Women and children were attacked severely during the lockdown. There were a lot of cases. We are just coming from the Commissioner of Police, and they have been given support. The First Lady too have been given support on all the violences cases we are having against women.
The Zamfara State Commissioner of Police is assuring residents of the commitment of the police in tackling this menace.
Police in Zamfara State will never compromise in any case against gender violence. In fact, we have a section that is handling that matter. And whenever it comes, I always indicate my interest to see that cases are investigated to the matter.
As the Emir of Gusau, Alhaji Ibrahim Bello, pledges to mobilize all district heads to ensure that gender-based violence is not tolerated in their respective communities, the First Lady of Zamfara State assures that she will not relent in advocating for the speedy passage of the Child's Right Act in the State House of Assembly.
Thanks for staying with us. Joy Ezelo joins us this morning on this 16 days of activism against sexual-based violence. She's a professor of public law, head of Department of Public Law, UNN, former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children. She's a member, United Nations Secretary General's Civil Society Advisory Board on Prevention of Sexual Exploitation and Abuse. And she's chairperson, Special Sexual Assault Referral Network Nigeria, as well as deputy chairperson, African Women's Leadership Network, Nigerian chapter. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, you definitely wear so many caps, and your passion on this particular subject matter is unalloyed. But it's 30 years into these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. How far would you say we've come in Nigeria?
Yeah, I will summarize it. We've made some progress, so it's just like one step forward, two steps backward. But we are better off where we are today than yesterday. And we hope that with actions and movement being built and alliances, that we'll get to where we want to be. But honestly, I've been in this for nearly 3 decades. So I am not impressed about the rising cases of sexual and gender-based violence, especially violence against women and girls. We know violence, SGBV, disproportionately affects women and girls. Of course, we are not saying that men and boys are not victims. And then if you look at the statistics, it's growing, and I'll just put it this way. 1 in every 3 women, and here I use women in generic sense to include girls, are victims of different forms of violence against women and girls, or sexual and gender-based violence on a daily basis in Nigeria. If you put that together, I know what it means. on daily basis. And that could be physical abuse, sexual abuse, harmful traditional practices, psychological and emotional abuse, economic deprivation. They all forms within the categories of prevalent forms of violence in Nigeria. And,
well, perhaps, my apologies, perhaps a definition would be in place. There's what some will call the strict definition. There's what they will call loose definition of what gender-based violence is, without semantics, without the theories now. And in practice, what are some of the things that constitutes gender-based violence? Because it's possible, I don't know if it is, but somewhere in somebody's heads, they may not even know that they're engaged in it.
Yeah, I think it's important that you say that, because we can define it in more theoretical form to mean any act or attempted act which causes or may cause any person physical, sexual, psychological, verbal, emotional, or economic harm, whether this occurs in private or public spaces. That means also it could be domestic violence, it could be violence that occur in public spaces. But let me just come further down to talk about what forms are prevalent in Nigeria. So when we talk about sexual and gender-based violence, we mean issues around rape, incest, or defilement and rape is when it's just a matter of age. Then the issue of spousal battery, which even the Lagos statistics of Bureau of Statistics have come up to say about 50% of women, married women, are victims and survivors of spousal battery. And then actually with regard to even educated women, that's more shocking. 65% of that category are victims. And then even that less so for even low-income women, that is put at about 50%. And this I know also from attending to thousands of cases over the years. Then we have issues of acid attack, we have issues of harmful practices, female circumcision or female genital mutilation, disinheritance, which affect women and girls, widows' rights that are very, not only just discriminatory, but degrading. Then you have issues of economic deprivation, abandonment. They are all forms of violence. When we talk about them, we begin to categorize. When you talk about sexual violence, sexual harassment comes in, sexual assault, rape comes in, defilement, incest. Then when you talk of physical, then the battery comes in. If you talk of psychological, psychological is even worse because it's a silent killer. And then people can be affected physically and you can see it and ask them what's happening. But some women, daily abuses on them by their spouse or their family members, just make them, they have low self-esteem and it affects them and their entire being and even mental health, which is important, which we are not even talking about. So when you look at this, including acid attack, some substance use, forcing women into different things and pornography, and they are all forms of violence. And trafficking is huge in Nigeria, and it's also a form of sexual and gender-based violence. And exploitation, forms of child labor and exploitation, the housemaid phenomenon, young girls and boys being exploited and made to work in a way that they don't enjoy their right to leisure or even being a child and enjoying their childhood. All of these are harmful to children. Child marriage is huge also in Nigeria, and it's a form of child and forced marriage. It's also a form of violence against women. And then
is there a law against that one that you just mentioned now, child marriage? If there is there, first let me begin. Is there a law against it?
Yes, but it's not like applicable nationally. So because the Child's Rights Act prohibits any marriage of a child under 18 years of age. And that also follows International Convention on the Rights of the Child that defines a child as a person under 18 years of age.
If Nigeria, my apologies, madam, I mean, you know all the rules and laws and everything around this. So if Nigeria is a party to that, I'm wondering what it'll take every state in the country, to cascade, to embrace this Child Rights Act. I understand about 28 or thereabouts states are yet to or have already embraced this Child Rights Act, and everyone, is Nigeria as an entity on its own is a signatory to it. We're a party to it. So what is holding back other states, or I don't know, how should we be going about this? If it is against the law, if it's against standard international practice, what's holding us back?
Is an issue around cultural relativism and resistance. People just use culture, religion, and all of these particularities to try to deprive women of their human rights, which is internationally, regionally recognized, including the Constitution, and that is unacceptable. There is obligation of what we call state responsibility on the part of Nigeria, having ratified all these international and regional instruments, including the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the African Charter on Human Rights, which is already part of our domestic law, and the protocol to the African Charter on the Rights of Women, which is called the Maputo Protocol. There is a state responsibility to respect, to fulfill those rights, and to legitimate expectation of the citizen that those rights must be fulfilled. So lack of appropriate age, or universally accepted age in Nigeria for marriage is a problem. And if you look at matrimonial causes, they will say, "Oh, marriage is between parties who are not who do not meet the requirement, then it's invalid." But then the law does not define it clearly. And then you also see criminal code, for example, exempting, saying unlawful carnal knowledge is that other than between husband and wife, meaning that if children are married at 12, 13, 9, then it's acceptable for them. That should be outright rape or statutory rape or marital rape, and it's not covered in our law. So and of course, the international bodies have held Nigeria accountable numerous times before Child's Rights Committee. And that's why Nigeria is in the backlog of reporting to them, because it's the same story that not every state of Nigeria.
Madam, just a number of things come to mind here, but is there a strong enough deterrence for sexual and gender-based violence? Because I ask that against the background of the fact that if the deterrence, if the laws are strong enough and the deterrence is punitive enough, we would have recorded some much more significant reduction in the numbers, contrary to what you said earlier about how far we have come.
Yeah, you're very correct. I think the problem, and place the major challenge to combating SGBV or violence against women is lack of accountability, low prosecution of cases, which encourages impunity. Because if you don't hold the perpetrators to account, then they will continue, and others see that there is no consequences for committing such gender-based crimes. So it is important, and that's why we're saying that we need to also move, as we have had standard. There are violence against persons prohibition law in many states, up to 27 states or so, and when we have also violence against person prohibition act of the FCT, and we have administration of criminal justice, that is also, and the trafficking in persons NAPTIP Act. It's time we also move from law in the books to law in action to ensure effective implementation of those standards or those extant laws. Because that is the problem. One can use even the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to challenge some of these practices that amount to torture, degrading, inhuman treatment, and punishment. But we are not using that. Prosecution is still very low. And that's why I think outside this law, we need to shift emphasis to implementation. Because sometimes we advocate for law, and we get the laws and we tend to relax and look at it in the back. A lot of the provisions are yet to be operationalized. No protection has been even issued against any party, contrary to the law since 2015. The issue of even sexual offenders register is not maintained in some states. Declaring a person as a dangerous sex offender has not been done in some states. So we need to look at implementation.
Okay, just one more thing, madam. It's a Monday morning, and you have made a reference to some of these things that happen even in corporate organizations. How significant is that? And do you think we have strong enough laws or regulations or prevention systems for those who may be vulnerable or susceptible in the corporate world?
It's not strong enough. Corporations that are multinationals they tend to have better practice following international standard. For example, to have safeguard policies against sexual and sexual violence or any form of act that may be deemed violence against a person. They have policies put in place, but of course, many Nigerian companies don't have this. And women on a daily basis face sexual harassment in the workplace.
In the light of stigmatization, likely stigmatization, and all these things that you talked about, what then does the person who is a victim? What then does the victim do? In very few seconds, if you don't mind.
Talking about availability of services, they need to report. We need to have increased reportage, and that's why we're talking about LGBTQ, because if you have specialized, it will enhance victim trust and protection, and then victims can feel comfortable and able. In the current system, some of them go to police station to report, and they are ridiculed. They come to court, open court, they ask questions that are most embarrassing. They blame the victim, they stigmatize the victim, they silence the victim. And we need to say no to that. And that is why about accountability, we have to talk about action-oriented messages, we need to talk about advocacy. I call it the 7 A's. Build alliance, make sure we have availability of services and assistance to victims and survivors of sexual and gender-based violence.
Well, there are so many issues to raise on this matter, but so little time. We have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning and giving us these perspectives. Most certainly, several people are hearing some of these things for the very first time. Joy Ezelo, thank you so much for your time this morning. She is she's professor of public law, chairperson Sexual Assault Referral Network, Nigeria, and deputy chairperson African Women's Leadership Network, Nigerian chapter. Thank you so much once again. Well, some messages now. Markwe, anyone from your end?
Well, yes, you can see a few now. Olagunjo Oladele has this, talking about fight against sexual and gender-based violence. It says, reflecting on all the things women have achieved in the past 100 years or so, women were practically enslaved and relegated to domestic chores, all stemming from pre-existing gender disparities as deep-rooted patriarchal, sociocultural, economic and political structures and ideologies. It is encouraging today that women are advocating for a larger role in the society. Well, they're not just advocating, they're taking up larger roles in society, which is a good thing.
What with the Elect Her campaign also going on? On tackling insecurity, Famous Milain says, we still need to have some serious look at security in the Northeast. We can't just take attacks on residential settlements as normal. It should be taken seriously. Simply because it has been happening doesn't make it normal.
And Octus Otobo says insecurity is not only about numbers, it's about people and how they're forced to leave. I have not traveled out of Kaduna town for the past 2 years. It is costing me my livelihood to the point that for the first time in my life, I have debts running into millions of naira. I have chosen to stay alive to raise 3 young children or risk my life on the Kaduna-Abuja road as a salesman. Truly very disturbing.
Certainly. And this one from Henry Okeke about COVID-19 Omicron variant. We need to sustain efforts in public health awareness and ensure that COVID-19 safety protocols become a way of life in Nigeria. Improving our primary healthcare workers' welfare and establishment of some functional health facilities in every community in Nigeria is urgently needed to safeguard our people. Well, that's the...
And that's all we'll have to leave Monday's edition.
Go ahead.
Of Sunrise Daily. Thank you so much for watching this morning. It's a beautiful Monday morning. I mean, there was fog here in Abuja. I believe it would have cleared by now. But it certainly is spelling the season or welcoming the season in a very beautiful manner. We hope that you have a great week ahead. Thank you for watching. I'm Markwe Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a productive week.